Hi, hopefully you can hear me. My name's Chloe and I am the Local Nature Recovery Strategy Project Manager for Oxfordshire. And we were at a workshop earlier on today with John, who you were mentioning earlier. So there's lots going on at the moment, and we're just coming to the end now of our first version of the surveys and the workshops. So there's been lots of engagement going on the past month, and now we're moving on to the prioritisation process, criteria for shortlisting, longlisting, and then going on to mapping. And I'm very interested to see what's going on across different RAs as well. So thanks for today.
Thank you. Mansi?
Hi everyone, my name is Mansi. I'm a biodiversity net gain advisor at Natural England, and I'm just here because I'm curious to learn more about local nature strategies.
Brilliant, thank you. Harry Hopwood.
Hi there, Harry from Westminster City Council. We've declared a ecological emergency and we'll be sort of working with and hoping to align with the GLA on their local nature recovery strategy. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. And Jay McCauley.
Hi, that's me. I can't seem to oh, here we go. We've set up a local nature committee to help nature locally, and we just really want to find out more about what we can do.
Brilliant. Olivia Mann.
Hi, Olivia. I'm a biodiversity net gain advisor at Natural England, also keen to know more about local nature recovery strategies.
Great, thank you for joining. Matthew Wall.
Oh, that's dark. Hi, yeah, I'm Matt Wall. I'm Senior Planning Ecologist at South Staffordshire Council. So District Council, we're a supporting authority for Staffordshire County Council for their LNRS.
Brilliant, thanks. And Natalie. No problem. Ned.
Yeah, hi, so I'm Ned Harrison, I'm Suffolk County Council. I'm Programme Manager for the Carbon Negative Nature Positive Programme, so that's for our County Council estate to get to net zero by 2030 and enhance biodiversity on 30% of our land by 2030, so it's only our estate, but yeah, interested to see how that fits in with the LNRS.
Great, thank you. Patrick.
Yeah, hi everyone. So Patrick Knight from City Council, involved with setting up the Sound National Marine. So interested in particularly OnePlanet's. Sorry, I've got OnePlanet connections. Really, very new. Just thought it looked very useful. So starting from scratch.
Great, thank you. Stephanie, you just joined. We're just introducing ourselves. If you could just say where you're from, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Steph Rose, Policy Development Manager at Tees Valley Combined Authority, and apologies on a few minutes late for joining. Had a few connection issues, thanks.
No problem. Laura.
Hello, I work with Mansi and Olivia in Biodiversity Net Gain for Natural England, and like my colleagues, I'm here just to learn a bit more about the work that you're doing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie, if you're free now, jump in. If not, no problem. Great, okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just give an introduction to OnePlanet, as in how we work, what we do, and the tool, and then Tash is going to specifically go into the LNRS work that we're doing. Mark, did you have a?
No, all good from that.
Also, you had your hand up. That was all. Maybe it was...
I think it was from before Ben when I said about recording.
No problem. Okay. So yeah, just as a the sessions booked in for an hour and a half. We would intend to have do the presentation and the demo, taking your questions as we go along within an hour, and then have a half an hour of discussion for those who would like at the end. If you do have questions, I'll pause and sort of ask questions, but if you have questions as we go along, just write them in the chat or raise your hand, and we will try and deal with them as we go. So just then to kind of explain where OnePlanet comes from, and it's interesting seeing here of people who are working on both carbon negative and nature positive, and those in the climate field as well joining this call, because what we've found when we speak to a lot of local governments is that you've got people who are tearing their hair out trying to address a single issue, whether that's the climate emergency, the housing crisis, health, air pollution. And the tool is really about looking at how we can create a set of shared outcomes that identify the key actions that will address these issues together. And that will actually have fewer actions, but addressing more effectively all of these outcomes together. So that's what the tool aims to do. Just to sort of explain where we come from. So OnePlanet we're a software company, but we've spun out of Bioregional, which is a social enterprise based now in central London, was in South London. Developed BedZeds 20 years ago, which was the first designed to be net zero development, 100 homes in South London. Offices were based there for many years. And on the back of that, we developed a framework called OnePlanet Living, which is 10 very simple principles that address all aspects of sustainability and address those in a joined up fashion. And then worked on projects all over the world using that framework. Specifically, London 2012 used OnePlanet Living in its initial sustainability strategy, and OnePlanet Living principles inspired the Sustainable Development Goals. One of our directors held the first meeting with the government of Colombia on what would replace the then Millennium Development Goals. So although we're a software company, our heritage is very much in the sustainability sphere. Just to explain sort of what we've learned through that journey is that addressing sustainability is all about understanding and managing interconnections. If we build communities where people have to drive and those cars are fossil fuel powered, we actually know that has an impact on air pollution and therefore on our health. We know it's causing climate change, and that climate change is causing heat stress and water shortages and impacting our health. Maybe a little more hidden is the fact that the plastics are a byproduct of the fossil fuel industry, and we now know that unless we burn those plastics, which is definitely far from ideal, they do end up in the ocean, get consumed by fish, and if we eat those fish, then they end up in our body, and we're now beginning to see the health implications of that. And then we've got animals, whether that's penguins on the other side of the world or whether it's birds in England, are being impacted by climate change, by pollution, by plastic pollution as well. So we need to address all of these issues together. And what we're aiming to do with OnePlanet is really, although we work primarily with local governments and regional government bodies, our goal is to connect together kind of the organizations on the ground with local government around these shared goals. So we have a community partners program working with community groups and then linking them to the work of local governments, working with local businesses, linking them to local governments as well. So how do we do that? The platform on one level is very simple and very kind of rigid. So all information goes into the platform as a plan, and these plans are made up of outcomes, what we want to achieve, actions, how we're going to achieve that, and the indicators, how we're going to track progress. And then we can link up the actions to many outcomes. So we can see that one action around promoting cycling is actually benefiting a health outcome, a transport outcome, and maybe a biodiversity outcome as well. So we can identify actions that are having a very positive impact and those that are having maybe a negative impact on some outcomes. You can then manage your plan in 3 different ways. So there's the mind map that I just mentioned, which is the data structure. So actually, when you draw that map out, that's how the data is stored in the system. You can then, if you need just a list of tasks, there's a label view, a table view, much more like an Excel, just a list of tasks. And then that's also linked to a document view where you can see all of that information in a report. So if you need a report on any particular outcome, set of actions for any period, that information is all generated in a report. So that's how you can manage a plan. One of the other features is that you can use different lenses, so you can look at all of that information through the OnePlanet Living lens, through Sustainable Development Goals, through the Environmental Improvement Programme lens, and Tash will show you all of that. But having set up a single plan, we can then connect those plans together into what we call ecosystems. So this is the LNRS ecosystem, or is it the South Downs one? South Downs ecosystem, which is made up of shared outcomes and shared indicators. And then these shared outcomes and indicators are used to connect together all of the plans. So they're adopted into the other plans, and we can see that this outcome around safe air quality is actually in the South Downs National Park, Wheel to Waves, Horsham District Council, and the East Sussex Climate Change Roadmap. So all of those plans are contributing to that outcome. If it's an indicator, they'll then be reporting on that same indicator. But if it's an outcome, we can see all of the actions that they're taking that contribute to that outcome. And I'll hand over to Tash, who will really just explain how we've been using this tool in East and West Sussex.
Yeah, sure. So with a very experienced consultant ecologist from the Sussex Nature Partnership, we've been developing sort of pilot methodology using the platform to support the LNRS work. It's a bit of a weird one in East and West Sussex context because it's a joint responsible authority, even though it's 2 county councils. So 1 LNRS for 2 councils. So the context of this is that, yeah, county councils have a specific task in which they've got to draw on the existing plans and strategies relating to nature or relating to and impacting on nature to inform the preparation of the LNRS. So there's a review level. I'm sure most of you already know this, but there's a review section of work. And then there's the creation of a LNRS strategy after that. The problem is that there's no existing understanding of what shared outcomes for nature recovery would look like at a local level. Obviously, we've got national strategies, but yeah, that's too high level for the LNRS. In terms of stakeholders, so the LNRS is the strategy, but the delivery is going to have to come through multiple organisations, yeah, and stakeholders. The county councils themselves, so the responsible authorities, are actually the fairly small stakeholder in terms of coordinating delivery, but they do have a reporting requirement. So there's a gap. Julie and I've identified there's a gap between the funding available and the requirements for delivery and reporting. So there's no established system for doing the reporting in the interim period. So we thought, okay, hopefully we can figure out a way to make this simpler for everybody instead of having a mad panic in 5 to 8 years when everyone's going to be asked to report on their LNRS progress. So I will now share screen and show you what the work looks like actually on the platform. Share screen.
Sorry, mute myself. While you're just getting that ready and sharing, does anyone have any questions so far on how the platform works, or on the work that's been outlined?
It looks amazing to me. I don't understand how it works. So presumably there's quite a lot of work that has to go in to ensure that you can pull off the different types of report. So for example, SDG compared to say a grant report, you have to put that information in. But I'm unclear how you would do that and how that's coordinated.
Sure.
Yeah,
I can
quite
show you.
baffled by that.
Sash will show
Yeah.
that now. Yeah,
great.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. So what the platform actually looks like, this is the dashboard. So you can see the workspace name up here is Sussex LNRS. This is basically where all of the work that Julie and I have been doing is housed. Within that, you can see there's 18 plans and there's one ecosystem plan. The 18 plans that we looked at include the West Sussex County Council Tree Plan, got the Brighton Hove City Downland Estate Plan. You can see some sort of variety of strategies, including the South Downs National Park strategies, Chichester Harbour Management Plan, and so on. And there's some water company plans in here as well. The way that we narrowed these down was because Julie identified there was 220 strategies which potentially impact and need to be reviewed for the LNRS for the area we're looking at. And we don't have capacity to review 220 plans with the budget. So what we did was identify which of those strategies are likely to be very similar, which of those strategies contain a lot to do with nature delivery, like delivery for nature recovery, rather than high-level policy, which actually a lot of those were just high-level policy out of that 220. So then Julie did that work filtering through what was important, and identified these key ones to sort of demonstrate our use or to test our use case of doing the LNRS on OnePlanet. She basically filtered out which sections of these strategies were relevant to nature recovery, and then I systems mapped those specific sections rather than doing the whole strategy. Obviously, there's lots in the Southern Water Business Plan, which is not relevant to nature recovery. However, there are some key chunks which are. So we focused in. What these strategies look like. This is the Chichester Harbour Management Plan, for example. It looks similar to what Ben showed you. So it's made up of outcomes, which the Chichester Harbour Management Plan identifies as what they want to achieve. That's to do with conserving and enhancement, the AONB. This is to do with diversity of habitats, marine litter, and then you can see the little A hexagons are the actions they're taking to support achieving the O outcomes in the centre. So long-term protection, landscape scale conservation projects, planning and about coastal footpaths, and the different colours relate to an LNRS draft lens that Julie and I have developed, which helps you read this information. So the categories are here on the right. The way we developed these was by looking at the EIP, which is the Environment Improvement Plan. That's a national strategy. And the High Wheeled AONB Management Plan. Looked at which categories might be useful, and then this has been like an iterative process. What we can do in this platform is say we want to only see elements of strategy which relate to, let's choose marine. So I can hide all and then just view the outcomes and actions, and there's actually no indicators in here which relate to marine and sustainable resource use, for example. So we can do that and go through and read each outcome, see what they contain, each action. I actually did a little example in here to do with something to do with seals. Yeah, here. So they've got an action to do with monitoring seal populations in terms of diet and behaviour. In actions, you can input a lot of extra information, assign an action, say someone is specifically working on it, like Julie. I could assign that to her. We could say if it was in progress or complete, but more than that, we can input guidance about this monitoring process, case studies, progress updates, and stories. And I put in a example story about citizen science monitoring of seals. We can put an image here. The same goes for the indicators, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let's just show all again. In terms of the lenses that Ben mentioned, I can switch into the EIP lens just instantly, and the data reorganizes itself based on the EIP lens that it relates to. So you'll probably recognize these. So yeah, that is what one single strategy looks like in the platform. And it's just like Ben mentioned, you can read it in terms of its mind map. So how actions relate to outcomes, how outcomes relate to shared outcomes, what indicators are measuring. But you can also instantly swap into table view or document view. So instantly generate a report, which you can filter. And if you were doing progress updates and so on, if you were using the platform for your actual LNRS delivery, this is how you check what's changed, what's on schedule, what relates, what actions being taken in which areas. So that's just to show you how you can instantly switch between reading the data in different ways.
And sorry, Tash, just to mention to Patrick, that's where, so once you've set up each of your nodes in a different, for each different lens, you put them in a category, you can then create a report on the EIP for DEFRA, but if you've got a lens from a funder, you can then filter out all of that information and do that reporting. So you just use the same system to report to all of your different bodies.
Yeah,
wow. Okay. Thank you. Well, as I said, it looks amazing, and now I'm pretty convinced it is amazing. That's pretty cool. Really cool.
That's just the first little bit. But so each of these plans have been mapped. Some the whole plan's relevant, so I've mapped all of it. Some it's just been little sections in relation to nature recovery. Another one I just wanted to show you was the West Sussex County Council tree plan, which is here. Similar sort of thing. It's got outcomes, actions, indicators and squares. And then you can see here there's an objective to do with ash dieback. So that's an outcome. In one of the actions to do with monitoring ash dieback, I think it might be in this action. I've added some, additional data. So you can put case studies in here to do with like best practice. These aren't real, by the way. I've added them to demo. Progress updates. You can add dates. For example, at-risk areas, highest priority for monitoring, current focus on high-risk areas which border known ash dieback cases. And then I've put a story to do with another citizen science story. For example, this is a way that you can quickly share information. In an indicator, you can add, I'll just do an example like this. Let's say we're doing something to do with woodland. It's just popped up on screen. The data like reorganizes itself live, which is pretty cool, but it does settle down. You can add monitoring data and charts. That's the difference there. So say you want to do, I don't know. You can add data. This, which will, okay, this is not very, for example, I'm going to make sure I delete that, otherwise that'll be very confusing. But you can put the data in there and then you can export the data at any point. just because I'm aware there's not actually much monitoring. There's not many indicator nodes in the examples I've shown you, so that's what that is. Then if we go back into plans, so we've been through a few of this 18 action plans. You can see the pink ones. We've also got one ecosystem plan, and that's basically like the sort of framework or the digital infrastructure that holds this workspace together. And it's made up of shared outcomes and shared indicators. This is our ecosystem plan as it exists currently, viewed in the EIP lens, or we can view it in the LNRS lens. These shared outcomes are then adopted into the plans which they're relevant to and linked up to the outcomes in those plans that they're relevant to. And it's basically the way that all the plans mapped in this workspace can talk to each other and communicate via the shared outcomes. Ben showed you a little bit of this. So for example, if I click on marine, it will show you which plans this shared outcome of marine is adopted into. So sort of unsurprising which ones pop up. What this helps you do is identify like synergies across the plans that you're looking at. This basically links up, the relevant strategies. And this, I should say, is actually a sort of work in progress. There are some really specific to the South Downs which wouldn't necessarily be relevant for your LNRS. So for example, if you're not coastal, obviously marine and coastal are probably going to go. Same goes for this shared outcome around dark skies. That's because the South Downs National Park is a EU dark skies protected area, something like that. So they need a specific dark skies shared outcome. Obviously, you could adapt this as you need. So Ben already spoke about it, but using these shared outcomes and shared indicators means that you can monitor progress across multiple stakeholders or plans or departments. That could be internal stakeholders or external and/or. And then you can report on that instantly in any lens you're using. For this project, we've just been using the LNRS and the EIP. Is there any questions so far on this?
There's a pause. I'm going out before trying to explain. Amy was asking about how are shared outcomes decided on. I was just going to say that either you can take an existing set of core goals. So I work more in the climate sphere, I suppose, with local governments. We're often taking the council plan for the area plus kind of their core goals in other strategies and turning those into the shared outcomes. Or if you're starting from scratch, then you can identify the shared outcomes as you go along, which is maybe more what Tash has done here, which you might want to add to.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, exactly. It depends on the project, the scope of the project, and often the ecosystem plan is made up of something that looks like a vision for the workspace. So if you're thinking about nature recovery, these are key components within it. Some are specific to our area, like this is a South Downs specific terminal. Actually, I think that might have come from the EIP. I think that one from the EIP. This is very iterative process, basically coming up with your. But some users use, for example, a partnership management plan and a corporate plan as their ecosystem plan, to ensure that that is spread through all of their other strategies.
Amy, do you have a question?
Yeah, just to follow up on that. Thank you. That's helpful to understand how you'd got to this. I just wondered what the thinking was of then how that will those shared outcomes change because the LNRS itself is going to set priorities. I know different LNRSs at different stages. So how will the shared outcomes, sorry, is that what they're called? Shared outcomes relate to or be similar to or different to the eventual priorities in this LNRS?
Yeah, so outcomes in OnePlanet language are priorities in LNRS language, and actions in OnePlanet language is measures in LNRS.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it?
That, sorry.
No, thank you.
There's a bit of like translation, but once everything's in our sort of outcomes, actions, indicators language, it means that any strategy or plan or project can talk to, like, communicate to each other. You can understand them in relation to each other. So that's why we're so sort of rigid on this structure, because once you've got that strategy in to this language, it's really flexible with how you understand it and read it. So yeah, that's how that works. Cool. Now let's show you what having that ecosystem plan actually does, because it's all well and good, but it has to do something. So we've got a button called Connections on our dashboard. When I open that up, there's a list of shared outcomes from our ecosystem plan. So this list is, where's my ecosystem plan? All of these. I've just chose woodland randomly. You can see in the center there's woodland, and then around the outside these are all outcomes from the various plans, the 18 plans that we looked at a few of, and you can click, open, see the information, where the plans come from, and any that are interesting to you, you can double click and open up, which I've done on this one, which is from the SDMPA's Wildlife Recovery Plan. And you can see they've got some actions which are contributing. They're measuring new woodland. And if you don't want to view all of that, you can just close it, which means you can basically explore what all the various stakeholders and strategies you've got mapped are doing relevant to woodland overall in the whole workspace, which means it's pulling data from everywhere that's linked up. That's the difference between this software and using like an Excel based software, is because the data is actually stored in relationship. It's like the data points relate to each other, and how they relate to each other via the links is how the software understands it. So yeah, it's not just like a pretty mind map, it actually is storing the information in this way. If you then think, oh God, too much information, I only want to see specifically everything which has been categorized as woodland, you don't want to see anything to do with grassland heath or climate change, for example, you can do this and then just filter out. So there's lots of functionality here that you can choose what you want to see. Same goes with if you just wanted to see certain plans contributions to woodland, you can remove or add in whatever you want. Then this is fairly new, so I'm excited by this function, but you can generate a report based on what you filtered. Oops. I just clicked the wrong thing. Just open up a few. Basically, you can generate a report based on this connection. So say you needed a report on everything that's going on related to woodland in your workspace a few months into the LNRS delivery, you can just instantly generate a PDF here. And it's creating the report. I'll view the report. There it is. Can view. And we can quickly see what's the shared outcome, woodland, where are the plan contribution plans, what outcomes are relevant, what indicators are being measured. Obviously, if you're reading this for the first time, it might look like a lot, but in terms of the work involved with gathering all this information another way, I'm sure you can imagine that'd be quite a headache. So yeah, this is a really cool function, which I'm happy we've got deployed. Back to connections. We could have looked at any of these shared outcomes. Farmland, for example. You can actually open up all level 2 connections if you want to see absolutely everything that's going on a few links away from the shared outcome. You can open that, and it looks a bit daunting, and that's when I'd encourage to filter what you actually want to see. So which stakeholders, if you've got teams of delivery partners, for example, a farming group, community groups, I don't know, nature charities, then you can filter in and out stakeholders, and you can filter in and out which categories you want to look at. So then it starts getting a lot less crazy. But the craziness is kind of more of a representation of reality. Obviously, everything gets really messy and linked up, but at least you can understand the complexity using this method. Helps you understand actually what's going on. I can see there's a hand. Who is it? Oh, Stephanie, do you have a question?
Yeah, is that all right? Thanks. So it was a good question. Obviously, it's great that you can map and interlink all the corresponding sort of plans and the shared outcomes, etc. I guess for me, it's back to kind of the I'm going to call it the ownership of those outcomes. I know they're shared outcomes, but fundamentally, the owner of each of the respective either strategies or plans in their own right will have a reporting requirement back to the relevant body or government department or authority or agency, etc., whoever the plan is associated with. Thinking specifically around LNRS, obviously that sits with the responsible authorities. And as you say, there is a requirement for us to continually monitor, review, and then obviously republish those plans going forward. So I guess my question then is, of the other associated plans, how is progress against sort of the interdependent actions and outcomes updated in your system? Because obviously the owner of all of those other plans are likely to be different to the responsible authority. And if, as the responsible authority, we were then relying on your system to provide us with updates, then how does the rest of the system get populated, and how is that then quality assured or quality checked? How is that then? How are those updates ratified? Sorry. How reliable would it be for somebody like us to use that system based on somebody else updating the system, I guess? Sorry.
So, I mean, just thanks, Stephanie. Great, very relevant questions. So, where we're on the LNRS that Tash been explaining to us, that's only just started. We're working with the South Downs, and we have some Somerset, I think, who are working with the Farming Wildlife Advisory Group. So on using this platform across a wider area, actually in the LNRS, and the goal there is actually to get the other organisations managing their plans on OnePlanet as well, so that the plans are all managed in the same place, and then you can share that information between them. This can even go down to community groups. So as mentioned, we do have a free tool for community groups and for smaller organisations, so that it's accessible to everyone. The quality controlled side of it, I mean, currently there's no quality control built into the platform. We are looking at can you, before making certain updates, does that have to be signed off by someone of a certain permission level within the platform? But at the moment, I would say it's more about making that information available to you. You can generate a report with all of that information, and then you can edit that information and report as needed.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm just going to chip in. So say you've got a shared indicator, and then you've got multiple stakeholders contributing data to that. You can actually attach images and sort of sources. So say you need photographs of some sort of like monitoring technologies like Report, that they've just taken a photograph and uploaded the data from there, they can add that as like a reference document for you to review. I suppose the question with anything where you've got to deliver with multiple partners means that there's got to be some sort of process that they're following for their data or for their reporting, and evidencing that. And you can put evidence in the platform, and you can also, because it sort of aggregates all of that information, you can quickly see who's doing what. And I think that means it's potentially easier to see if there is missing evidencing, or there's outlying data and so on, because we've got that shared indicator point. Also, it allows you to see like potential double counting as well, because you're looking very specifically across all the stakeholders. So I don't know if that makes sense. We're also, like Ben said, looking at having feedback from like a central, say you're a manager in the ecosystem, you could comment on somebody's updates, like a contributing editor's updates, and say like, oh, please put your attach your evidence, or can you please check these figures, they're looking unusual, or whatever process you would usually have. Where looking at developing that as well, because probably be useful for a lot of our customers.
But thanks for that. One point I wanted to make was just on the data. Tash showed about monitoring indicators and inputting information. We do also link with Power BI. We're not trying to sort of like people are already collecting a lot of data in different formats. We're trying to link to the output of that data. So if there's a chart demonstrating something, can we embed that live within the platform, so you can see that progress live, not provide another data collection tool that everyone has to put their data in again. But back to you, Tash, and you can carry on.
Cool. Just got another function that you can still see my screen, right? Okay, cool. So apart from connections, we can also use search tool, which allows you to search by any term. Say you just want to see actions relating to water across certain plans, but I'm going to search all plans, hit search, and it will pull every single action, which tells you which plan they've come from here. So we've actually got 48 popping up, results popping up. You might want to then filter that down just to water actions which relate to the climate crisis, and then there's 3. So you can see how that works. Then if you wanted to do something more, let's do something more specific as an example. Flood. Okay, 6 results. Say you're constantly looking at flooding. It's like a core area of your work. You can then create like a favorite search. You can do this with generating reports as well, like your filter settings you can save specifically, so you don't have to go through each time turning off and on which stakeholders you want, which information you want to see. You can save like a certain filter, and then just quickly apply it by clicking a button. So yeah, you can see I've got a pollinator search here. Every time there's updates, I can just view and then see this information as if I was in the mind map. So you'd be able to view all the updates to this action around habitat for pollinators. Same with flood, I've just saved it and here they are. You can quickly click any and view those plans as well if I want to see in more detail what that looks like. So this is quite a large plan. That search tool is obviously pretty useful, especially if you're somebody who quickly wants to see a very specific term that's even more specific than any of the shared outcomes. That's that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but you can do it in any of the lenses as well. And you can also bookmark if there's certain stakeholders, certain actions or indicators within plans that you're particularly interested in, you can actually you can bookmark those nodes as well. So they'll be even easier for you to find a specific node within a specific action plan if it's one that you're like monitoring because you think the reporting's dodgy or something. You can do that, and or there's not been progress made or whatever. Whatever your reason, you can bookmark, and that means you'll be able to find that node even quicker. There it is, I just bookmarked it. So that's just, this is basically like a whole system search. And then the last thing to show is the report generator. We can generate reports which pull information across the whole system. You can choose the time frame. Say you want to click like last month, you can choose which stakeholders, which teams of people, which categories, what amount of additional data, so monitoring data, case studies and so on, you want to include or exclude, and then just automatically generate the report across the whole system. So it's basically, the tool is as wide or narrow as you want it to be, which when you're doing a big project like the LNRS, obviously is potentially pretty useful. I don't know how, like Julie said to me, I don't know how you do the LNRS, even like reviewing the existing strategies without something like this. Or you'd like tie yourself in a knot with pieces of paper on a desk.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's kind of it for my demo.
So yeah, Natalie's put a question in. Great, I'll answer that. One thing I wanted to add, because we're talking to land-based people, we just started on building a geographical map view so that you can see everything on a mind map. You can then geolocate everything and then see that information on a map, and then link to other mapping tools, so LandApp and Esri, and see that with the layers with it. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So that's work in progress, but I think it will obviously be kind of critical for this land-based work. Natalie, how intuitive is OnePlanet? I mean, we obviously think it's very intuitive. I mean, there is some learning to it, which is more about how to set things up in the right way to get the most out of the tool, rather than kind of how to actually use it. We've mentioned FWAG a few times. They've really just taken all of their plans and mapped them themselves, and I would be very happy to put you in touch with them and give you their sort of thoughts on how easy that was to do. We give normally people an hour or so's training, and then they're able to do that. Engaging with stakeholders. Tash, do you have anything to say on?
Sure. So we've been running a project with the South Downs National Park since April, so a year ago, last year, which has involved stakeholder engagement from SMEs to charities to local government. There's been various uptake. Obviously, we know people are pretty time poor, so if they can use the tool in a way which supports their work to be more efficient, then there's great uptake. And there's actually recently been a lot more interest in SMEs using the tool. So we've got various research projects going on with universities there. Currently, though, a lot of the work has been sort of internal strategy use for strategies, for example, in councils or internally, like with the South Downs Park Authority. Although the work with the FWAG group and this expansion of the South Downs National Park work is bringing in lots of external stakeholders. So it's basically making it work for everybody. Every use case is different.
On the climate work we're doing, so we're working with Horsham, who are looking at using OnePlanet to help implement their climate action plan. They've got community groups that have, so specifically the local church group, Eco Churches group, and their neighbourhood groups have created plans on the platform that are linked to the district's climate strategy. So it's kind of bringing all of that work together and helping these groups kind of feel that they're not swimming upstream on their own, but they're actually working together. And then you can make templates for them. So if they want to create a plan that's automatically linked to yours and propose actions and things to them, then they can do that. I will pass that. Yeah. So if there's no specific, is there any other specific questions? I'm really interested to know kind of people's thoughts on if they think that we need a tool like this to manage to get regarding a national organisation for local plans. And I don't know if the Natural England people have any thought on that, but it does feel that we've got a tool, or we've got a local nature recovery strategy. They're all going to be different. They're all going to be locally specific, but there does need to be some kind of central framework that we can use to compare against each other. And I don't know if any of the Natural England people feel that OnePlanet could help with that, or if there are other ways of doing that, or if anyone else has any other thoughts on that issue. Thanks, Harry. That's brilliant. Yeah, we can pick up later on. No one with any specific thoughts on kind of coordinating national strategies, or? No problem. So another area that we've been looking to tackle in this using the platform is how we can kind of set things up in a way that enables kind of naturally ongoing monitoring and reporting against the LNRS or against any specific framework. And just wondered, do people feel that that's a kind of an essential requirement of developing your LNRS, or do people expect they'll come back to that later on? Hi, Ned. Please jump in.
Well, yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation and stuff. It's really looks interesting. So I will jump in, but I should caveat that my background in this is very much from the net zero decarbonisation side of it. I've now sort of picked up more of the sustainability side, and we'll be working with the LNRS. So I'm going to be taking stuff away to show to other people to see if they think it looks promising. But definitely it's something we've talked about a lot on the net zero side. Is a lot of people are working on it, and we don't have a very coordinated approach, and it tends to lead to a lot of time being wasted, and also a lack of transferability of lessons, and it makes it difficult to compare progress, and it just seems to be a barrier that's in the way. And I think there are things that are coming in place to solve that. So I would just say, sort of from a position of some ignorance, that I think it is a really useful, appears to me to be a really useful approach for that. I think if everyone's feeling their way on this, a more coordinated approach to it sounds great.
Thanks. I actually had another question for you, Ned, specifically because you are looking at climate and nature recovery, or kind of across both of them. That how have you found joining up those issues? Because another way we've really been using the platform is so here we've been focusing on nature recovery, we've been working on climate, we're now just starting on kind of health, on a few health projects as well, because all of those type of issues, you kind of don't want a health strategy. It should be in every other strategy. And just wondering how you've found trying to join up climate action and nature recovery.
Yeah, how long do we have? So it's a really good
we said
question.
We've got till 5:30, but yes.
So yeah, and off the record, it's I mean, it's a challenge. There's so many things, and it's really important, and definitely there's a parallel program to the work that I do, which is looking across the whole county in terms of climate response, and looking at the kind of co-benefits on health and nature and climate and economy and all of these. So there is a lot to work in that space is really important. I think from my work in particular, looking at the land and the properties that we own, it's something we're very aware of. We talk about the opportunities a lot. I would say it still tends to be easier to work on a straight decarb project or a straight nature recovery project than necessarily always to find the best way to sort of get all of those benefits together. And I don't know whether that's because of the history of where we've come from, and it is asking teams to work together a bit. And some of it is about things like the best join up might be on land management, and it can be quite challenging there. Particularly, we've been waiting a little bit for some of the new nature legislation to kick in around the farming subsidies and biodiversity net gain and some of these things. So I think once that settles down, it might become easier. Don't think that's really answered your question, but so yes, we think it's important. If the platform can help with it, it would be great. It's probably in the space where we think there's more opportunity to unlock some of those joint projects.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're definitely hoping to do, is whether that's identifying the projects that are going to help address these issues together most effectively, or whether it's kind of, as you say, kind of if you're doing a retrofit project, how do you work in nature recovery to a carbon project? And there are differences between trying to layer nature recovery into what is a carbon project, as opposed to saying, okay, what can we do that's going to deliver on saving carbon, maximizing nature and supporting health. And I think we're still at the beginning of the journey of trying to get people to think in that way, rather than thinking, okay, how do I get nature into this carbon decision? But it's a process, I think. You mentioned biodiversity net gain, and I mean, this might be me being, oh, sorry, Tash, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna hop in and say, with the work we're doing with the South Downs Park Authority, National Park Authority, just ran a workshop last week with the planning team, because they're actually a planning authority. So bringing in planning, so that was the BNG side of things. Also, so they've, yeah, basically it's a perfect test bed to bring in BNG, planning, and obviously they've got climate strategies and they've got nature recovery strategies. So I'd be happy to talk more about how those sort of collide via the platform with my colleague Neve, who's leading with the work with them. The idea is that ultimately you're going to be saving a lot of time and avoiding potential like missed lessons from other work, and finding the opportunities to maximize like the co-benefits of certain decisions being made. So yeah,
I think I'd be interested to hear more about that maybe. So I think I mean, there's two things. There's the property management thing, which is very big for the decarbonisation, and on biodiversity tends to, I guess, it tends to be sort of nature positive accessories a bit, for want of a better way of putting it. But we also own a lot of, very rural estate. We own a lot of land. And I guess the approach, the first stab we took at that was to look at it from lots of different perspectives and kind of understand the potential from the different perspectives. And that's been really useful. But it's also a way of thinking about it that tends to characterize it as either food production or nature enhancement or decarbonisation. And I just think it's a bit too much for my small brain to be able to say, well, what if it's all three, and how do we measure them against each other? So it's ways of seeing things that our genuine joint co-benefit project is perhaps, I guess, the next goal we want.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is about identifying the opportunities and what are the best projects to be looking at, as opposed to necessarily saying how we're going to weigh up how, or try and fit of carbon versus help, whatever. Can we just start by looking at which ones are going to bring the most benefits across all of those areas? Thank you for that, Ned. Sorry for picking on you. Are there any other questions on the platform? I have one other thing to mention, just about work we're doing, and get people's thoughts on whether it's useful that one of the kind of benefits of the platform is, once a plan's been mapped by us or by anyone, if that's a regional national plan, that can be shared with anyone else immediately, and you have access to that in the same way. On that vein, we've started mapping out kind of national policies, so we can see how the interventions linked to kind of critical national policies, whether that's the net zero policy or policies around health. Is that, just wondering whether people feel that would be something that's useful, being able to kind of reference even their local nature recovery strategy to other national policies as well. Maybe not then. Amy, thank you.
Sorry, I might have not understood the question, but I think at least there's an expectation that we need to make sure the local nature recovery strategy fits with the environment improvement plan. So I was interested to see that lens work that you've been doing. Yeah, I'm not sure about. Yeah,
Cool.
obviously it should help fit with other strategies and other national stuff, but whether that's something we need or whether that's, yeah, I'm not sure.
Thanks, Natty.
I've
Yeah, I mean,
actually-
Amy, it's
Sorry, Ben, I was just going to say I've mapped the whole EIP in the platform, which is I'm actually very proud of, because it was the biggest strategy I've ever mapped. And let me just show you what it looks like. It just means that if you wanted that, you could have access to that. Here it is. It's got a squirrel on the front, red squirrel. Yeah, there it is. It's absolutely massive. But you could see how your EIP is relating to that, how your LNRS is relating to this EIP, for example. Yeah, that's it. Ben, you're muted.
And I can't find the button to unmute. Thanks, Tash. That was all the kind of questions we had. So this has been very much focusing on our LNRS work. Ned, I'll bring to you in a minute. We do have whole works streams around climate, around health, and we have other webinars on those, and just really keen to kind of keep this discussion going with people about how we kind of link up these critical issues. So we will share this presentation, but also keep in touch around other issues. Ned.
Yeah, thank you. So you might have partly answered one of my questions, which is that I looked at this and I thought this is an approach that could be really useful in the net zero space, and I'm sure others as well. But I also just had a question, and apologies if I missed this earlier, ducked out to take a call one point, but the sort of functionality of it, I can see this is really useful from a kind of program management and reporting point of view for the people who are coordinating all of that information. But in the LNRS space, but also in the net zero space and lots of things, we're working across lots of partnerships, lots of people involved. So I wondered about the the functionality of the platform as something for everybody to engage with? And I guess how many users do you see actually going in and meddling with it? Is it something that people can be working with directly, or is it more of a really core team who are then putting it out to produce reports for the partnership about how it works?
So at the moment, there's kind of one interface for everyone, and but I mean, as Tash showed, you can bookmark certain actions and go just to one place of the platform and just see those actions. The direction we're taking it is for people like yourselves or who do need to be able to pull in all the information from everywhere and generate those reports. There's almost like one login for that, one account for that. And actually, if your job is just to update on track the progress on certain actions, then maybe there's a separate login for that, or maybe so we've just started investigating integration with other project management software, or with Teams, Microsoft Teams. Can you get people putting a message in Teams and that just updates the action? So and then, you know, kind of as mentioned, there is a free tool. So yeah, there's, for smaller organizations, there isn't a cost barrier to using this. So I mean, our lofty goal is we get as many people as possible using this, because I think only if we get information shared across all of those groups can we actually start addressing them. But our thought process is we're not going to get everyone to log in and use it in this way. We need to give them lots of different ways of kind of engaging with the platform. Brilliant. I actually had to leave about now because I've got a sick child that I need to take somewhere. So this, if there are no more questions, that's very convenient for me. If not, I would leave you with Tash and Mark. But if not, thank you very much for your discussion. It's really, really interesting discussion and great to get your thoughts.
Thank you, everyone.
We will follow up to all of you with the presentation and some other links, and for those of you who had specific questions and requests, we will get to you. We'll reply to you separately. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a good evening, and we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.